When did this whole idea that every British citizen should have a right to health care?
Well, if you go back, it all began with democracy. Before we had the vote, all the power was in the hand of rich people. If you had money, you could get health care, education, look after yourself when you were old. And what democracy did was to give the poor the vote, and it moved power from the marketplace to the polling station, from the wallet to the ballot. And what people said was very simple. They said in the 1930s we had mass unemployment, but we don't have unemployment during the war. If you can have full employment by killing Germans, why can't you have full employment by building hospitals, building schools, recruiting nurses, recruiting teachers? If you can find money to kill people, you can find money to help people. This was 1948. Your new National Health Service begins on the 5th of July. What is it? How do you get it? It will provide you with all medical, dental and nursing care. Everyone, rich or poor, man, woman or child, can use it or any part of it. There are no charges except for a few special items. There is no insurance qualifications, but it is not a charity. You are paying for it mainly as taxpayers, and it will relieve your money worries in times of illness. Now, somehow the few words sum the whole thing up. Even Mrs. Thatcher said, the National Health Service is safe in our hands. It's as non-controversial as votes for women. Nobody could come along and say, why should women have the vote now? Because people wouldn't have it, and they wouldn't have in Britain. They wouldn't accept the deterioration or destruction of the National Health Service.
If Thatcher or Blair had said, I'm going to dismantle national health care...
There'd have been a revolution.
Although rare, strikes among NHS workers are not unprecedented. In the UK it feels more common now. We've seen nurses, midwives, junior doctors, ambulance crews and radiographers on the picket lines. This most recent and probably largest mobilisation of NHS staff started building momentum in July 2022 when the government announced a pay rise that was criticised by the General Secretary of Royal College of Nursing, saying they have enforced another real terms pay cut on nursing staff. And trade unions like Unison said this was nowhere near what was needed to save the NHS. The disputes kicked off at the start of October 2022, with the RCN balloting their members and announcing dates for the first strike action in its history. Over the next 6 months, a wide range of healthcare workers followed suit with strikes of their own. Whilst pay was on the agenda, and obviously certain publications supported the idea that NHS workers were greedy, understaffing, burnout and the impacts these things have on patient care were often mentioned by striking workers. The government's response was not very empathetic, with Rishi Sunak insisting that the offer was appropriate and fair, and in September 2023 the Health Secretary at the time, Steve Barclay, announced plans to impose minimum service levels that could undermine the impact of any further industrial action taken by healthcare workers.
Oh, green man, go.
Hi, my name is John and I work for the RCN in London.
Hi, my name is Vivek. I've been an intensive care nurse for nearly 15 years.
Hi, my name's Mark. I'm an emergency department staff nurse.
Hi, I'm Hannah. I work for the ambulance services and EMT.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm a clinical nurse specialist in the paediatric division.
Hi, I'm Lucy. I'm also a paediatric nurse specialist.
So today is the second day that our members are taking strike action. So all across England over the last 2 days, yesterday and today, hospitals across the country have taken strike action. Our members, the nursing community, have had 10 years of below inflation pay increases. This is at a time when the cost of living is shooting through the roof because of government economic mismanagement.
And it's basically about safe staffing, and it's about fairer pay for nurses.
I personally feel like over the past 5 years, I've noticed just whilst I've been working here that the stresses on the staffing levels have been really under pressure. Nurses are relied on more heavily constantly. We're always upskilling, yet they never build our capacity to increase with that as well. So we're doing more and our numbers are reducing.
We have a 3-year university degree and like Lucy said as well, every year we have to keep up to date. We are revalidated every 3 years. I think we are extremely knowledgeable and skilled and experienced, and every year we gain more and more experience, and that needs to match in our pay, and especially with the cost of living going up.
Because of the unsafe working conditions, it's been really difficult, especially in intensive care, to do our job efficiently and safely.
I just wonder, sort of like, if you could maybe explain some of the day-to-day things that you run up against, the difficulties.
Being nurse specialists, we're not on the wards every day, but from our point of view, for our other colleagues, we know that they turn up nearly every day, and there's staff shortages. There's not as many nurses as there's meant to be. So the nurses will be looking after 15, 20 patients between two of them, where the ratios used to be 4 to 1.
Lack of beds, lack of GP appointments, inability to see a specialist, long delays for scans, it's all impacting on patient care.
It's not uncommon for them to go on shift and be 2 or 3 nurses down.
Obviously, Brexit didn't help as well. We lost a lot of staff with that, mainly in the hospitals, I think, more than the ambulance service.
So, in terms of spending personal time with patients, all that like bedside care that is really important to them, it just means that it's so much shorter. Some things may get missed. It puts the nurses under such significant pressure, and ultimately it affects the patient and the care they provide.
As a result of all of this, a lot of our nursing colleagues have left the profession, and we are short of nurses.
It's not exaggeration to say that the NHS is effectively like collapsing in many places, that, you know, it's taking many hours for ambulances to pick people up. They're having to queue to get into EDs, they're then queuing in ED before they can get into a bed, and this is all having a massive impact on patient care. The Royal College of Emergency Medicine was estimating that there's maybe 500 avoidable deaths every week due to delays in emergency care.
It is difficult to keep patients alive. The NHS nursing job used to be a sought-after job.
And do you think, like, you know, obviously there's always going to be critics of any movement, but do you think the general sort of sense among the public is that of support and understanding for the nurses?
We've had great support from the public, really. I think they understand. You know, a lot of people, they've got relatives who are in hospital, they've had to attend hospital, or they know how hard it is to get a GP appointment, or they've had to wait a long time in A&E, and they can see the struggles we've had, and people are aware of that after COVID. They know the sacrifice the health workers made, and they can see the impact it's had on the health service. So the public are generally supportive. You know, they think we should be paid more, they want investment in the NHS, that's not controversial.
I think the public do support us. I don't think that's left. I think people are really appreciative for what we've done. Over just the past 2 days, I've not heard one member of the public complain to us that we've been out here. Everyone's walked past and supported us, honking their horn.
You can hear the public have been absolutely incredible in terms of supporting the nursing profession. We know that nursing is the most trusted profession in the UK, and we've just seen that being demonstrated here today and all across the UK.
The criticisms that, you know, they're not going to be able to meet the safe standards within the hospitals. Do you think that's a valid criticism of the strikes?
No, it's not really valid, because our staffing levels aren't safe any day of the week. You know, our hospitals regularly only got 2 nurses on a night shift for a 28-bedded ward. That's not safe, and that's happening every week at multiple wards across the hospital.
If we are talking of working conditions generally, they are the same as today.
What about the other 364 days of the year? You know, we're on strike about those days because it's all those days that are understaffed. We're trying to ensure that most places have a basic level of service, which in some cases led to more staffing in some areas.
Me standing here and many of my colleagues behind me does not affect the safety for the patients.
If they're that concerned about patient care, then let them put pressure on the government to give us a pay rise, put the investment into the NHS to make it safe. Because if we call off these strikes, sure, there's not going to be any more strike days, and you just have the everyday understaffing, which is impacting patient care. You know, we're not striking all these days that there've been massive ambulances queuing outside hospitals. We're not on strike then. That's just a normal day because we don't have the beds, we don't have the space to see and treat all the patients. I think people do feel annoyed at very angry at the government that they are not finding money for the NHS when they could find all this money for, rightfully find money for PPE and all this stuff during COVID, although lots of that was misspent and, they gave it to their mates. But they could find all that money. But when it comes to a pay rise and basic investment in the service that everyone uses and benefit everyone, they're like, oh, we've got no money now.
It's such a sad time. It's so sad to think that, our profession is being gaslit by the government. Difficult times at the moment, and a large part of that has just been because the government have mismanaged the economic situation. In terms of government action, it's just so disappointing. Our chief exec, Pat, is ready to chat, ready to negotiate with them. To an extent, is ready to negotiate in terms and conditions, but the government refuse to engage because ultimately they're the ones that have the power to stop this.
But in relation to the government's response, it's a load of shit. Pretty much.
A lot of people point out, they're like, oh, they were clapping for you a year ago and now they've got no money for you. It's a common refrain.
We saw a lot of support from the public, and all the government gave us was clapping. Yeah.
For me personally, I'm a mum of 2 young children, and childcare fees in London as well are really, really high, and I can't afford to work full time. So we're losing nurses from full-time roles into part-time, which is just causing even more problem for the NHS.
There are some of my HCA colleagues who are having to go to food banks, just to survive because they can't put food in the plates for their families.
The healthcare assistants, we think we have it badly with pay. They're paid less and they're completely at the brink as well.
We are struggling to work safely. We are struggling to pay our bills. We are not paid. We're not paid well enough. It's very difficult. We've been seeing that a lot of my nursing colleagues have taken a break from the profession, or they are moving away from the profession.
In the east of England, we have 4,000 staff members, 3,000 of which are students. So it's quite a lot of pressure on the qualified staff as well as all the students and everyone that's coming in. They don't want to stay because they're not getting support when they've just started. And the staff that have been there for a while, they're getting other job opportunities, whether it's in the private sector or whether it's just moving to a different area.
If we go out into private hospitals, their band 6 nurses or their band 7 nurse, band 6 or band 5 nurses would have a better salary compared to a band 7 NHS nurse. So that's where the difference is. And I don't see our nurses staying in the NHS. They probably would see it would be safer or easier for them to move to private healthcare where it is easier to work and they get paid much more than, for instance, someone like me.
I'm worried about the future of nursing. We've been understaffed. We have extremely high pressure on us, especially during the pandemic, but it's been going on for many, many years. I'm worried that maybe in the future there won't be so many people going into nursing as a profession. That's why I decided to come out today.
If we continue this path, NHS is likely to collapse.
Do you feel a sense of solidarity with the other striking workers around the UK at the moment?
It depends on who is striking. For instance, like nurses, doctors, firemen, all that, I agree with their strikes because they are in the same position as ours. It's not nice just watching the patients die. I personally don't really understand the rail strike. I think we do all need to stick together and not kind of turn against each other, because I do think the common denominator in all this is the government, really.
I think it's been a learning experience for a lot of NHS staff who haven't taken strike action before, but very quickly people are realising how we're all in this together. That there needs to be unity between strikers. We need to be supporting each other. We need to be supporting each other's strikes, because in the end it's all the same struggle for trying to get investment in our service, whether it's the post, the railway, the schools, the NHS. We want investment. We want a pay rise so we can, we don't have this massive pay cut from inflation, which is driving more and more people into poverty. And people see the need to support each other.
Do you feel a sort of sense of solidarity with these other groups at the moment?
Absolutely. A lot of these are other public sector workers as well as are our members, which means that everyday people are now really suffering, whether it's increase in mortgage rates. We keep hearing the phrase heat or eat, having to make really difficult choices. So of course there's solidarity across the union movement and working together.
I do take solidarity with everyone who is striking, be it the NHS, the ambulance, or the train strikers, teachers. We are all facing very difficult times.
I'm hoping we can, get more coordination between all our strikes and build up to a much more powerful, in the end, general strike against this government, because they're not budging, they're not listening to people. We really need to up the pressure, up the tempo on what we're doing.
Rishi Sunak pledged to cut waiting lists as one of 5 key priorities, but by October last year, overall waiting lists had increased by 500,000 people to 7.7 million patients. Analysis by the Health Foundation predicts this could increase to 8 million by the summer. The Strikes Act 2023, passed in July last year, now gives the Business Secretary power to impose a minimum service level that must be in place during industrial action. These service levels are left undefined and open to interpretation by the Business Secretary. In April 2023, Unison accepted the government's offer whilst the RCN rejected it, splitting the 2 biggest unions representing nurses in the UK. The RCN balloted to extend their mandate, but didn't meet the 50% threshold for turnout, and were unable to keep striking legally. Despite that, RCN members on the Isle of Man did win a pay dispute in November last year, and there are currently consultations around a potential pay spine specifically for nursing staff, with the union claiming that the current pay scale no longer reflects the skills and expertise in nursing today. While the high-profile strikes might have seemed to tailor off in terms of coverage with the nurses' dispute, plenty of NHS staff have continued the fight and even voted for further industrial action. The British Medical Association announced in February that junior doctors would be going on strike for 5 days, with their peers in Northern Ireland also taking to the picket lines for the first time in their history. Following the recent budget announcement, Chancellor Jeremy Hunt is planning to cut health spending by 1.2%, resulting in a £2 billion cut to the NHS that will be the biggest real terms cut since the 1970s. This has been met with frustration from the likes of Saffron Caudry, the Deputy Chief Executive of NHS Providers, who claims these cuts will undoubtedly have knock-on consequences for the health service and patient care, and leaving our healthcare system in a state of continuous financial vulnerability.